here on the main stage, our final speaker flew all the way in from Sweden, talking about the vision of Einride. Nova, darling, for the last time, can you please say who is our next guest on stage?
Our last guest of the day is a true pioneer in the future of transportation. While trucking accounts for 7% of global emissions, they digitize, electrify, and automate shipping, making it sustainable. They raised more than 600 million euros in funding and are changing the transportation industry for good. Electric power, digital intelligence, and autonomous driving technology, with humans always in the loop for safe and seamless shipping. Please welcome to the stage Christofer Laurell from Einride.
Let me share a story from a person that has really made a strong impression on me at an early point in my life. My grandma, Camilla Avdek, she was born in the United States in 1913. And 5 years after she was born, she was forced to move from the US to Sweden because of the fact that both her parents passed away. When she came to Europe, and when she came to Sweden, she started to attend Swedish school. And in school, she was telling her classmates, after having learned a bit of Swedish, that there were these amazing things in the United States. She was telling her Swedish friends about the fact that in the United States, they had pianos that were playing themselves. And her friends, they thought that this was just the most fantastic thing ever. And they said, is it really true? Is it true that pianos can play themselves? Because if pianos can play themselves, there must be a lot of other innovations out there in the world that is really changing the way we are perceiving things and the way we're doing things. Her classmates thought that this was fascinating, but the teachers, they didn't really think that it was that fascinating. They were telling her that, you know what? You need to stop telling lies, because everyone knows that there is no such thing that a piano that can play itself, and there will never be one. So when I heard that story when I was a kid, and my grandma told it to me, she said that, you know, one day in the future, there will be things that is developed in Europe that kids in the US will be in awe of, that kids in the US will think, this cannot be true. And ladies and gentlemen, in Europe right now, in this very city and well beyond, we have people doing things that no one thought would be possible. And the future is really coming to the United States from Europe. In the sector of transportation, we see a lot of innovation coming, and a lot of that innovation is driven by companies that share one thing, and that is that they are European, and that they are driving not only one technological transformation, but several in their industries. What we are all witnessing now is that new technology that is enabled because of all these technology shifts that we are seeing happening in parallel with digitalization, electrification, and autonomous solutions. They are opening up a way of not only bringing a lot of change to industries that really needs it, but what they are enabling is something much more important, and that's the green transition. The green transition is something that has been talked about for quite some while now. And in 1972, we had the first conference in the world that was dealing with the environmental crisis that we are in. 50 years later, we have finally what we need in order to bring real change, not only to specific industries, but also to the economy as a whole, as well as society. And entrepreneurship and innovation that utilize these technologies in order to build the solutions of tomorrow, that is what is happening right now, and that is what is enabling the green transition. What we are seeing in our industry when we introduce solutions that are connected, electric, and autonomous is that new technology always needs new players. It was not the taxi industry that innovated and created platforms like Uber, and it wasn't hotels that envisioned what Airbnb could be or what it became. It was technology companies taking a completely different perspective to what is possible and bringing change, regardless of what legacy players thought about it. In transportation, we haven't seen change for 100 years. The internal combustion engine, that was the innovation around which everything has evolved. And as we haven't really changed the internal combustion engine paradigm up until quite recently, that is also why we need new players such as the one that we are seeing from Europe to really push and drive change in a way that legacy players cannot do. In 2016, when Einride was founded, no one saw that change really was needed. When things were talked about around electrification and connected trucks to increase the efficiency of the system, the industry essentially said that, well, that's something we are going to talk about, not now, but perhaps at a later point in time. It wasn't anyone's business or problem, really. Today, about 5 years later, I can tell you that no one is getting away with that narrative. If you don't want to change the industry, then you have essentially declared that you're not going to be in business for any time longer. We said, well, it might be impossible, but we are going to do it anyways. So up to this point, we are very proud to be able to share with you that we have shipped 500,000 pallets electric. And on top of that, we have managed to cover 700,000 kilometers of electric transport. And what this has meant is that we have saved over 1 million kilograms of CO2. And this is only the beginning. So what we do at Einride is very simple. We ask ourselves, if we were to transform rather the transportation system, and we would have redesigned it from all over again, from scratch, how would it look like? We believe it's electric, we believe it's connected and autonomous, and that is what we are building, and a whole ecosystem of solutions that are really encapsulating the powers that the new technology is offering to us. Let me introduce the grids. A lot of talk now is about one truck and one charging station here and there and everywhere, but what we are doing in our ecosystem is to take an overall approach and introduce wide-scale change at scope and speed. So the grids, they are essentially corridors where we introduce what we need to have in transport going forward, and that is an efficient, green and clean solution that in the end also enable us to do what we need to do in the future, and that is go from electric transport to autonomous transport. Because the fact of the matter is that transport isn't going to go away anytime soon. Up until 2050, we are going to double the demand of transport. And what that means is that we need to have solutions that can really get us to the point where we need to go. In the world right now, we are seeing driver shortages all across the world. In the UK, we have 100,000 drivers missing. In the US, we have 90,000 drivers missing. In Poland, we have 125,000 drivers missing. And I can stand on this stage continuing talking about how bad it is. I won't do that. I will talk about the fact that autonomous solutions, when we introduce it, is not only going to give us the supply we need in order for us to be able to match with the demand. What it's going to give us is a way to take the best that the technology has to offer and keep the human in the loop, so we'll be able to keep drivers, but go from a different ratio compared to the one we have now. Go from 1-to-1 between vehicle and driver to several vehicles per driver. With these grids, we are also using the best software it has to offer. We call it Einride Saga. And with Einride Saga, you get a way of optimizing not diesel-based transport, but the transport of the future, which are electric. When you do the switch from diesel to electric, there are a number of variables that you need to take into account in order for it to really work. So by using our engine, Einride Saga, we are able to help our customers to plan and execute their transports across their grids and across the networks that they need to have up and running each and every day, each and every hour, and each and every minute. So where are we doing the grids? Well, one example comes from the United States once again. And in the United States, there is a lot of challenges in the Los Angeles, to be more specific, and around the port area, in the port of Los Angeles. So together with our customers, we are scaling a grid that is going to electrify a lot of the transports in an area where we're seeing a lot of pollution too. Because in diesel, we have a lot of pollution that goes beyond emissions. We have NOx, which is actually making people sick and also killing people. And by turning diesel to electric in areas where we have a lot of transport happening each and every day, we can really make a difference, not only for the environment, but also for human beings. So this is how it's going to look like. This is one of our stations that we are building at the moment. 65 chargers with a capacity for 200 trucks. And that sort of speaks to the scale and the scope that you need to have when you go from diesel to electric. We cannot substitute one truck for another. It's about doing this much quicker than anyone thought would be possible. And this is happening right now. But as always, the future is bright, but there are a few things that we need to talk about. Because if we are going to make this happen, it's not only about doing what is the right thing, it's also a matter of stop doing what is the wrong thing. So what does that mean? Well, in the world today, we have a lot of legacy systems that are built around diesel. And the first thing we need to do is to stop supporting these legacy systems. If we stop subsidizing fossil fuels, for example, what we can be able to do then is to turn these subsidies in the old into investments in the new. The things that are coming out now from the United States as well as Europe is very promising. We are seeing a lot of investments, both from public sector actors as well as private actors, in the technologies of the future. But in order for us to really take the next step, we need to stop supporting the legacy system, because that's how we strengthen the technological competitiveness that we have in Europe and the US from a global level. So what will we get in return? Well, what we are seeing is that we need much stricter climate targets, and we are one of the actors that are really pushing for that. If we can get much stricter climate targets while we invest in the future, that is how we get to a point where we truly can say that we are living up to the Climate Paris Agreement and keeping 1.5 alive. Ladies and gentlemen, when I look out in this room, I'm feeling very, very optimistic. Because in this room, I see the solutions to a lot of the problems that we are facing in the world. One thing that I think is really important is not to take the future as something that is static and already decided. Instead, I want to leave you with this. The future is not something we enter. The future, that's what we create. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.